Welcome to the AI Riff, where we cut through the noise and break down the top AI stories of the week with real talk and real relevance. No hype, no fluff, just a vendor-agnostic take on what's actually shaping your world today. Whether you're in tech, lending, or just trying to make sense of the headlines, we're here to separate the wheat from the chaff and the facts from fiction. Now let's get started with your hosts, Mario Di Benedetto, Rob Katz, Ruth Lee, and me, Kyle Myers. We hope you enjoy this episode of the AI Riff.
It's episode 17, and we're growing the size of our podcast yet again.
Wow, there's a lot of faces here. Did we, we were supposed to shut that door, but open door policies are pretty good. We get to meet some nice, interesting people. And I see Ben Sizemore has joined us.
Well, you said nice and interesting. I don't know if Ben fits either of those descriptions. So welcome, Ben. Good to see you again.
Thank you. I just clicked on a link that said something about free lottery numbers, but somehow I ended up here. Not sure what that means. Seven?
That's the tip
Is
of the
that
day.
What it was?
7. Yep.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you guys are talking about AI or something, and so now I feel like I need to stay.
Yeah. And we got Ruth back. So yeah,
welcome back, Ruth.
I'm very happy to be back. I had an amazing vacation, and so back to the grind.
We'll have vacations vicariously through you. So,
right. Hey Ben, why don't you give a 15, 30-second "Who are you?" elevator pitch?
Sure. If I was stranded on an elevator with Mario, I would basically tell him that my name is Ben Sizemore. I'm the CIO of Land Gorilla. I'm a 30-plus year mortgage technology, I would say geek, but I'm probably more like an abuser. I feel like I've been abused in the mortgage business. But at the end of the day, I've spent my whole life on the lender side, and I've just kicked off this great gig with Land Gorilla doing construction software, building software. So I'm on the other side of the fence now. So I'm excited about it. So I get to live, that's why I'm here really, Ralph, is really I want to siphon off you all that knowledge, what it's like to be as a vendor.
Happy to share.
Yeah. I think the whole industry has Stockholm syndrome at some point.
Absolutely.
Well, I got to tell you, Ben, that's the software that I always wanted to create way back when I was doing all-in-one construction loans back with, I'm in the Pacific Northwest and doing loans with, I think it was Pacific First and with Washington Mutual and with all of them. It's quite a software challenge, I know, and I'm glad that there's guys like you that are willing to take that on.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm telling you, it's a great journey. Just the whole concept of drop management, handling escrows of funds, and just that whole economy of how things work. It's been fun just learning about it, and it's been fun trying to figure out how to make really customer savvy solutions. So excited! Awesome. Can't wait. Keep it going.
Well, welcome, Ben. And Mario, do we have something? We have something on the agenda today, right? It wasn't just to introduce Ben, right?
No, that's it. We're done.
Okay, cool.
So today's episode is titled AI's Awkward Adolescence, and awkward being the operative word. So we're going to start out, and it's going to seem like a stretch, but I promise you it is not. We're going to start out talking about Taco Bell's challenges with their AI. And there's a lot of social media that went around on this particular topic and article because they tried to use AI they continue to use AI. I shouldn't say they tried. They continue to use AI to do things like take orders in their drive-thru. And they've had some very interesting trolling and pranksters and things like that. And it's funny. Let's just start there. It's funny, so it's topical and everything else. But when you step back and you say, well, gee, I want to have a consumer-facing chatbot, you do kind of have to look at their experience and say, well, hold it. There's a lot of angles where people can really do things I really don't want them to do. And in the simplest case, it can just be annoying. But in the worst case, it can be kind of problematic, right? And that's the awkward adolescence of AI. Like it putting up a chatbot that's consumer-facing ain't just like, hey, I'm just going to throw something up there and sure, it's always going to work great, right? So
why don't we give a couple examples of what actually happened? One of them, I think, was somebody ordered 15,000 cups of water, and that processed through and made it to the restaurant. can't remember the couple other examples that were in there, but it was, like I said, it was people trolling the system and trying to wreak havoc on something that was, meant to be helpful for the business.
Well, and if you watch the video, it actually, the kid was ordering a Mountain Dew and it said, "Would you like a drink with that?" It's like, yeah, I'd like a Mountain Dew. Would you like a drink with that?
Looping effect where it was like it got stuck. It didn't understand the answer, so it just kept asking the question. And it's like, well, that's great for Taco Bell. They don't have to spend any money, on the time and have a person do it, but it's really annoying for their customers.
Yeah,
right.
Very.
But don't you think that, I think that some of this is a little bit of Schadenfreude, right? I mean, people are so excited that when things fail. And the reality is that for all of those that we see and make viral videos that are funny, all the boring "it worked" isn't making it to a headline.
To admit, the Chinese human who took my order 2 weeks ago got it very, very wrong. So
yeah.
On my Chinese
there are still plenty of those out there, trust me.
Yeah, well, humans do make mistakes too. We always come back to that. So, but this does seem like, when it can't understand a person's name, and listen, if you follow enough of the threads of, this is a very like web of articles and stuff like that, you see that they've now realized there are times that they just need to drop through to the human, right? And it'll just give up and it'll say, okay, and a person will come on the line and help, and that's cool. But for me, I started doing a little bit of work on this, and I was doing it in the context of mortgage. I came up with no less than 25 bad actor personas that you would have to guard against for similar things. And it starts with pranksters, but it goes to people who can, try to manipulate your chatbot.
Well, so two things struck me out of this. One of them was, and I don't think we need to go down this rabbit hole, but I want to put it out there. How fascinating is it that companies are investing billions of dollars into AI, and their problem that they are attempting to solve is the lowest wage work earners to replace them, and is it because there's just so many of them that the economy will be there to save it, or is it that the tasks that those low age workers are doing are the easiest to try to hand over to an AI solution? A combination of probably both of those things. So there struck me a little bit of just kind of it's that head scratcher, like, why is that the problem we're trying to solve, right? The other thing that struck me was the conversation that we had in our last episode, which I thought was quite brilliant. Mauro, you guys really broke down how do you assess what you can take to AI, and where is the human in the loop going to be inserted? And I feel like Taco Bell failed to follow a process that you outlined. They didn't think about, okay, these are the edge cases that we need to be ready for the escalation to a human to handle this. So when something like 15,000 cups of water comes through, or the AI, is in this loop that it can't get out of, that it escalates right away to a human being. And they missed that. And so, when we talked about it last week, we were talking about it from mortgage banking and small business and medium businesses and stuff. Taco Bell is this ginormous company with who knows how many millions they invested or not into try to roll out this AI. And they kind of missed this fundamental. We have to have humans ready to step in and fix these things that go wrong. And they weren't prepared to do that.
But there's this assumption that because you're a big company, you automatically have all the tech right. And for those of us who've worked with very large banks, we know that's not true. Just because you have a banner name that people recognize in, the far corners of the earth does not mean that your tech stack is, cutting edge at all.
Mm-hmm. Or even if it's cutting edge, that it's put together in a way that's 100% efficient to where it needs to be. And it does have more edge cases than it has cases, which, I would hope and pray that Taco Bell, this was edge cases that we were talking about and not the norm. I have to say, I love Taco Bell when I was in college, but I don't go to Taco Bell anymore. I don't eat there. So
it's Taco Monday in our house. I'm just
see, I had tacos last night that I make them at our house because I'm vegan. I think I've said that on a previous, and I had the impossible meat. And I know that Rob doesn't like it. I know Rob doesn't. Rob says no on the impossible meat, but I make my own tacos, and my wife is awesome as a chef. So I get the benefits of the best Taco Bell ever right in my home. So anyway, that was just a sidebar. Sorry.
Ben, what do you think, Ben? Like, we haven't let him
No, I
talk
mean,
yet.
you guys are talking about it. And I'm just thinking the same thing happens this past year when I was in a previous lender. The whole use case for all of technology, with AI included, has always been the lowest denominator of staffing, right? What is the simplest thing that we can solve for? And you're investing all this money in order to do that. So Rob was saying that was going through my mind right then and there. I'm thinking, don't we all do that? Like, it doesn't seem to be, it seems to be the case with every industry. They're going to find the simplest way to implement this multi-billion-dollar widget in order to solve for this really, really, and maybe that's why they're doing it, is if they can solve for the small stuff, it'll scale, become smarter, whatever you want, it'll start figuring out the bigger stuff. So it was interesting hearing you say that, Rob, and that's exactly where my head was.
I think there's a challenge in that, people aren't looking at there needs to be a collaboration, right? I mean, you have these entry level jobs and, the great part about new talent and new tech is that it's all about the possibilities. And then you have the other side of it, which are people who are more experienced. And I keep telling people, I'm like, I have gray in my hair. I have job security because I'm the one who knows if it's right or wrong. I mean, having a bunch of entry level people and, not paying attention to what's happening on the front line or not having people who are a little bit have more experience in the wisdom and discernment. And that's really, I think, where there's a disconnect because just because you should or you can do a technology doesn't mean you should. And we keep seeing that over and over again, which is the misapplication of technology. Doesn't mean the technology doesn't work. It just means that maybe it's in the wrong spot. And when we see these big banner cases like Taco Bell, doesn't it say maybe bang, bang, bang? Nope, don't do that. And instead, look at predictive analytics.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of scares me about it too is that the companies that are out there that are thinking about what can I do with AI, who read these banner headlines about Taco Bell tried AI and it failed, is that actually going to make somebody go, well, if Taco Bell can't get it right, I don't have the resources to get it right. And then they're not even going to try. Right. And so there's that fear of these banner headlines that are going to discourage proper utilization and deployment of some of these AI tools.
I would love to see all the positive use cases, though. To your point earlier, Ruth, like how many that were right. And
That's
it
right.
was just one social media influencer that just blew it out because 18,000 cups of water is followed through. I'd love to know what the other side of it looks like.
Well, I think McDonald's was a use case too, weren't they? And Wendy's.
McDonald's is doing one as well. They list out a bunch, and I think to that point, right? There's a difference between a prankster who just gets a chance to laugh at your AI, right? But if you take this and you make it so it's not Taco Bell, and I'm going to kind of segue into the second article here, right? Because there was this article about how both AI and Anthropic were tested, and these, I guess they were researchers, basically found that they could use psychological tricks on AI to get things out of it that they probably shouldn't have. So they could flatter it, or they could say, things like your competition or somebody else is going to do this. And AI would actually give them stuff that they didn't want. And if you kind of translate that to our business, right? If you do that in a kind of a mortgage tech world, it's like, what stops somebody, who cares about the prankster? Somebody gets a laugh out of your chatbot or whatever that's trying to take a loan app, let's just say.
I almost feel like this comes back to the whole prompt logic discussion, right? It's like, how creative are our prompts, whether they're verbal or what you type in, to manipulate the system? Because I do that all the time. If I don't get the answer I want, I change what I'm saying to it in order to tweak it to get what I want out of it, right?
Did you say please at the end? Is it?
Actually, I do. It's phenomenal what please does to it. You'd be shocked. And I'll admit, I use Anthropic and Gemini. Those are my top two. But please makes a big difference.
We forgot to pause. This episode is sponsored by Anthropic and Gemini. No, just kidding. It's not.
We're trying to get sponsors, Ben, because
I do want to say when I read this article, I wasn't surprised at all by its findings, because you have to stop and think about what generative AI is doing. It is looking at patterns based on the stuff that has been trained on, and it's been trained on human interaction. And so when it's looking at the samples, the gazillions of samples of interactions, and humans respond differently when they are flattered, then their responses change from the human when they get flattered. So the word patterns are, if you flatter the AI, it's going to gravitate towards those nodes, and it's three-dimensional calculus that it does, and it's going to end up spitting out words that are responding in the same way that humans did when they got flattered. So not surprised at all that that's the finding of the outcome, and also kind of pleasantly happy that it works that way in a way. Like, it is like, it's showing that it's working, right? That they find the words and the nodes that are close together for what I'm saying and respond back with what's there. So is it good or bad? Maybe there's ways you can write the prompt, Ben, to your point, to exclude the flattery or something. I don't know, but yeah, I was not surprised at all by the outcome. It made perfect sense to me that it worked.
I'm picturing the Terminator, and you say please to him, and will it affect him at all? That's what I'm thinking.
I wasn't it Terminator 2 where the kid said you can't kill anybody, and he just ended up shooting one of your legs, right? Please don't shoot him anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was great.
So in your world where you're excited by the fact they can do it, you'd be fine if you're a lender and somebody comes in and convinces it through peer pressure to give them an extra point off their mortgage rate because the guys down the street were going to do the same.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm fine with it. I think the cautionary tale is when you are using the tools, be careful in your prompt, Ben, to your point. This is all about prompt engineering. It's always been about prompt engineering, right? And B is when you're developing one of these systems, you need to filter out and have your tool, if you're writing an API to OpenAI or whatever you're using, make sure that you are filtering out that flattery or manipulative language so that it responds in the way you want it to respond, not the way that it's going to mathematically respond.
Yeah, but how many off-the-shelf tools do that for you, right? That's where you get into, I think it was Ben that was saying it before, like, well, hold it. Is that hard work? Like, do I have to go pay a programmer to make sure my bot does that? Because, the off-the-shelf stuff gives me the right answers, but something else has to get weighed in to do the filtering?
Well, and there's a lot of tools that you can also use to overlay where it's really looking for those patterns. But I think just like anything else with a new technology, we're not innately born with the creativity to know all the possible permutations of failure. I mean, for those of us who went through TRID, we planned hard. We planned so hard. And then we had 75,000 people break it. And then that first couple of few months, I mean, the CFPB wrote 1,800 pages. Every attorney in the industry released a paper and a white paper. So that, and we still found ways that it was wrong. And so I think that, the failure of creativity is just a short-term problem, that it's a growing pain of a new technology that you all of a sudden have. Well, that's what natural language processing is. I can talk to the computer for the first time ever. And that's the most exciting part of this. But yeah, when I talk to it, I'm going to talk to it my way. And I'm going to be Southern, and other people are going to be more, New Jersey, and other people are going to be more California relaxed and whatnot. So, you have all of that. And so that's training, and it's a real change and an evolution, but I don't think it's a failure.
Yeah, it goes back to one of the old conversations we had about AI not hallucinating, but basically ignoring the prime directive that it was given, which is don't do this. And when it was trying to say, you're supposed to shut down if you get in this scenario, and it wouldn't shut down. Well, if you can use a generative AI and insert, call it flattery, call it anything else, some other variables that could get the AI to ignore its prime directive, then I think that could be problematic. I mean, we're talking about it in flattery in one way, but to Mario's example, what if it actually says, well, the neighbors, the guys down the street, they're really nice. I want to get, and its directive is to get new clients and saying, I want a new client. And yet it knows I'm not supposed to go below this rate. But if you could give me just a lower rate, it would, and enough iterations, and all of a sudden it comes back and that person can produce that cocktail napkin, what used to be a cocktail napkin, the worksheet that says, hey, I was quoted this price and I want to lock it. And they say you can't, that becomes a problem. So I don't know.
Well, if you do have chatbots doing licensed activity, that would be something that you probably want to go ahead and jump on, because your compliance officer should be saying, throwing up a red.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that the lenders are just so uneasy about an AI doing any type of license activity. You think about FHA underwriters, you think of those DEs, that the sacrifice, they're putting that on the lines. That's their livelihood. I was also thinking about code of conduct within AI models. I mean, I don't know how many times you would say something to speak to an AI model and it would say, no, I can't do that. You could apply that same logic to pricing. I mean, hey, this is outside the guardrails, and have that be a kick to a human being when you design it, right?
Right. And how did they ever do it with we touched on this last week as well. How did they ever do it with DU and LP when they first came out? How did we ever get to the point where we rolled out an automated a software that could actually underwrite loans and give recommendations for the loans? And that was the most complex, going back to the first article, that was the most complex piece that we attacked with a algorithm, right? So why is it that the most simple piece, just logging someone's order and getting it to someone to make it, how is that a problem when we had the algorithm solved in DU and LP?
Yeah. So the difference is I'm going to oversimplify. DU and LP are if-then statement loops.
Then logic.
Right. Very clearly definable rules as opposed to generative AI interpretation. So it's a different tech stack.
So are we applying the wrong tech stack to the problem? Shouldn't we be applying an algorithmic with an AI overlay that just looks at the algorithm, looks at the logic, and that's it? It doesn't go outside the boundaries, doesn't try to learn. I mean, maybe have the learning AI in the background for suggestive upsells and those kind of things, but not being the primary. I don't know.
So without going into the gory details that would put everybody to sleep or even further to sleep, we do that in our product today. We had things where we could not get consistency over time from LLMs, and we still use deterministic rules. Now, we actually use AI to draft the rules, but we have humans validate them. We use deterministic rules engines for certain things because we need to know it's either A or B, and there should not be a gray area in how you get to your answer. And it is kind of a, I've got a hammer, everything's a nail with AI. Like, just because AI can come back with an answer doesn't mean you should be using it for that. Right?
I mean, let's think about phone trees that you call into the bank and so forth. Long before AI technology, those things have been in place. So you could imagine I'm going to use Mario's fancy terminology of deterministic rule set at a Taco Bell ordering system and get something to work. And maybe the AI is there to do the natural language processing, to convert the words into the text and so forth. So it's one more tool that's, maybe being applied the wrong way. And then if you do go down that path of the deterministic logic, you avoid I said please, so I got a better rate, I got a better answer, because that wouldn't necessarily apply. So it's really a blending of the older technology, more established, well-defined technology with the newer technology, as opposed to jumping all in with the AI stuff.
I'm going to say to Ben, you were talking about what actually works, right? I was on this MBA panel with a gentleman from Cenlar, and he was talking about their CSRs. And I thought this was just ingenious, right? They were like, we're not going out there and telling, AI to talk with our borrowers. We're not doing that. But what we do have is, it's subservicer, right? it's all about servicing the borrower. And so when their agents are on the phone and the AI is listening and they're asking a question about their payment, it's bringing up the check. It's bringing up the back of the check. They're asking about their escrow disclosures. It's bringing up their last escrow account disclosure, their entire summary. It's able to bring up the property taxes. I mean, it can do those things to really facilitate rather than saying, can you hold a minute while I go and research your account? Ding dong, and all the music. Yeah.
That Ruth is actually kind of a point I was going to try to make earlier, is that it's a great supplemental tool, right? I know I've used it so much for like TA work to help validate all the heavy lifting that I still have to go over, but it's allowing me these tools to be able to move faster. In that case, with the Cenlar example, it allows that person to make quicker decisions, feeding them that information, and they can, boom, like, providing, instead of making the decision, they're supporting a human being to make that decision quicker.
So can we just touch on, because that borderline is like the opening of the door for the wrong use. And I'm going to go way back to the early 2000s, and there was companies like Ditech, and they were very proud of the fact that they could hire somebody, and in 15 minutes that person could learn how to take a loan app because they didn't know anything. They just, click on here, follow the prompts, and it'll take you through how to take a loan app on the phone. So no experience whatsoever. But in the way Ben and Ruth, you just described that, you can have that assistant, but what you can't do is have somebody with no experience whatsoever who doesn't know whether it comes back with something that might be wrong sitting there, right? The human in that case has to have some understanding to be able to say, no, I'm not going to repeat those words because AI is leading me down a road that's not actually a good place to go, right? And that's like, it's again, hammer and nail. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should take some numbskull and say, just do whatever AI tells you. No, bad.
It's Iron Man's helmet. It's Jarvis inside, supplementing everything he's seeing. He's seeing it, and he's going, Jarvis, what do you see? And Jarvis will say, hey, look here, look there, and identifying and supplementing his abilities and leveraging the tools around her. And yeah, Iron Man's right there, signed Stanley. So just letting you guys know that. But that's kind of what I think about when I think of AI, right? Jarvis in the helmet.
Well, and that's the point with, I think that some people are like, well, we're just going to replace folks. Okay, sounds great. For the people who are actually seeing a lot of success, they're really enhancing productivity rather than trying to replace FTEs. And it's a different philosophy, right? I want to have 25 people be able to do the work that it used to take 50 to do and they're doing it better, faster, and with a stronger customer experience. Then I'm just going to chuck all 50 of them, and I'm going to have a rando robot see how it goes. Those are two separate paths to success.
Well, and last week we were talking about what tasks you should automate, but differently, the concept that because AI is really good at certain parts, but maybe not good at other parts, what you used to call a task might actually get pulled apart, right? And so you might have it do part of a task, and that might be useful. Like the idea, I'm going to automate this whole task might not make sense, and I'm going to use my own Taco Bell experience. So given I go to Taco Bell every Monday for Taco Bell Monday in our house, and because Taco Bell is just really kind with using their app, I get rewards every time. So I always pre-order on the app. And yet, when I pull up to the drive-thru, it says, "Can we get you points for checking in today?" Well, no, I don't need to check in because I've already ordered. And then it drops to a human. When in fact, in my little world, it should say, "Have you already ordered?" AI could say I could say, "Yes, Mario," and maybe it could even skip where that person has to come on and say, "Hello, can I help you?" Right? Like they could break this into smaller pieces. It doesn't have to be AI does your entire order, right? You could take little pieces of this puzzle and it could be effective, right? It still pre-screens basically, but it always goes to a human. I don't know.
So my big two questions are, that the rest of the world is Taco Tuesday, not Taco Monday.
That's why we go on Monday.
Okay. And I am curious, what do you get? What does Mario eat from Taco Bell?
It's a moving target. I do like the Cantina chicken quesadillas, and I do like the steak, cheesy steak grilled burritos. So
those are good.
They sound good.
Kyle, when you're
Yeah.
back in Scottsdale area, I found a phenomenal vegan taco place, and they have Taco Tuesday. It's only $2.50, and they're the best tacos I've ever had. So I will
I'll be
take you
down
there
there
on
in
a Taco
about 3
Tuesday.
weeks. I'll be back
Cool.
down there in about 3
Gotcha.
weeks.
Good. It's no longer 117, so you're welcome back.
Awesome.
I have a question, and I want to talk to Ben because I love your insight. I mean, you're sitting in that seat, and don't you think some of this is a failure of testing? I mean,
I have
you'd think you'd
no
want to
idea what you're
test.
talking about. You would think, right? It's not just testing, it's also a little change management, right? But you're absolutely right. And I think because these projects are so, it always seems that they're so highly developed and managed and researched that the testing seems to just lag behind it, right?
It'll be fine.
And right, it'll be fine because it's AI. Hey, you know what? And so I think that, and not only that, the real ability to make sure that we're solving for the right problems, like that always seems to change from the time we actually got the requirements to the time we actually delivered. Even if you're running agile and you think you're doing stuff fast, it just seems to change. This business we're in is so dynamic and every little thing changes that. But you're right. I think testing and the ability to deliver a product that's been thoroughly tested is always been a challenge.
And
I'm,
where
I'm
you're
not sure how
talking
to
about it,
solve for it.
yeah, and where you're talking about is those C-level ideas about how to spend. They got all this money, and they're like, well, they don't have all this money, but they're asked to spend all this money on this AI technology, and they come up with the idea, and they go to their next tier down, and they say, hey, tell me where we can spend the money the best to get the most bang for our buck with AI. And what I think Taco Bell may have failed to do, not only the testing, but is to get to the next level even farther down to the managers of the places and say, hey, where can I help you produce more profitability and better sales? Where can I help you? And maybe they did. Maybe these branch manager or these managers or franchisees came back and said, this is exactly where you can help me. I want automation at the line. I have too much turnover and I need this solved for me. And then they came back with the problem, but they didn't get the solution the right, like as Mario suggested, maybe a combination of two different things. Not all AI. AI is not going to be your Klarna figured out that's not going to be. And I had to get Klarna's name in there because we do every
Good job.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if and maybe it was just a failure of getting good requirements and understanding the problem that the requirements are going to solve that problem and not just be, well, that would be nice and shiny penny. This is really cool. This is going to bring us into the headlines that we're using AI. Well, and maybe it's just one simple, guy trolling them with the different, videos of it. But honestly, if you don't have your problem and solution tied together with the people that actually do it, that can sign on and say, yeah, that's going to fix my problem, then that could be another part of the failure in the process.
And you're speaking to Ben's point about change management.
Yeah, that's what I did. So
Yeah,
that's where I found the biggest problems were when you had a vision that was not the vision of the people doing the job. And it may not have been their vision, but they didn't even understand how the vision was going to really equate when the rubber hit the road. And so we had visions come down, and it was a great deal. We had a product that we built, 100% built, got it ready to go. It never got used because it didn't solve the problem that was really there. It solved the problem they thought was there. And that's the biggest change management. You have to have that, not the testing. Testing's where you find out you got it all wrong. Testing is where you test what you believe you built is correct and it works. UAT testing is when they go, that doesn't help me. That works, but that doesn't help me at all. And
Well, you would hope it doesn't get that far, honestly. Like if
you would
it's
hope.
gotten to UAT and right, then that project's in serious trouble to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Real
part of
fast.
the problem too is in this industry, the patience level for change and the speed of change that technology needs to bring to the table is just a little short, right? And that impatience causes, because as I said earlier, from the time that they wanted something to the time they get it, their minds have already changed or shifted.
Mhm.
So I think
Or the market
it's just
shifted, you know?
I get that, but there's still some fundamental things that still apply. At the end of the day, we have to process, underwrite. Like these things don't change, right? The market may shift, the product type may shift, the rates may shift, but the process, so that's where I've always been a fan of, hey, how do we create the most efficient widget of creating loans? So that way, and at that point, it's just a matter of, it's a different product, so these little things change. But anyway, this feels like a serious rabbit hole, and and I don't necessarily want to go. My arms aren't long enough to chase the white rabbit down into Wonderland, right?
Well, we could leave the door open for Peter
This,
Cottontail to come
this
in
is
here,
what we
but
do,
I
Ben. I
Yeah,
don't know.
think we'll be okay.
yeah.
So
Did we have another art? We had something else to talk about
we
today, didn't we,
did,
Mark?
but I can't reference there's a sports show where the host gives points to the different sports writers as
Oh, yeah, I
they
remember.
comment. What's that called? But
Not
whatever.
pardon the interruption, but
No,
it's
it's
one of
not
the
that
other
one.
ones.
It's a different one. I needed to give Ruth a point earlier because she referenced back to the original comment. And when I introduced this, the awkward adolescence, right, of AI, right? So awkward adolescence, we've been talking about, it has very uncomfortable conversations, right? Which is what we've been going through. It can be flattered and peer pressure and everything else. But one of the other weird, awkward pieces of adolescence that AI is going through is its relationships. And so there's something that came out that I'm curious if we see this as a canary in the coal mine, I guess, for the right analogy. I don't know. A legacy, what I'll call a legacy internet company, Atlassian. They make Jira, among other things. So those of us that have been in software development and many other companies know them, who has nice cash cow software, went out and bought the browser company, which is an AI browser company, right? Which is way outside their domain. But to me, smells like where we're going to start to see. We're going to see lots more consolidation. And I like to go back to what Rob has said in prior episodes about going out and investing yourself in pieces of software that are built on top of AI, because it's got to go through this arc of consolidation. And even the stuff we've been talking about, like chatbots, there's probably 5 bazillion chatbot companies out there, and some have got to go out of business, some have got to get bought. And I think this process where these legacy non-AI centric companies who are really good at what they do are going to start eating them up. And one, I'm curious if you guys believe that, but two, what would that mean? Because to me, it means same thing Rob's been saying. Don't go getting yourself connected to one of these because you don't know where they're going to end up.
Yeah, and I was actually even a little confused by what the end game is for Atlassian with this product. It was described as like the replace your hey developers, replace your browser with this new tool that's AI connected and you do everything. And I'm like, is it just a new IDE that's web based? Is it a web app IDE? Like I didn't
What's an
get
IDE, Rob? For those that don't know,
it. What was that?
What's an IDE for those that aren't developers?
Oh, for those, it's. I actually don't know what it's what the acronym
Integrated
is.
development environment.
Yeah, it's a place where coders code that has all the files and access and
Mario,
shortcuts.
why are you asking questions you already know the answers to?
I'm serving it up.
Yes, he was serving it up.
He's trying to get
so,
his point.
so I didn't. Yeah, so I didn't.
Totally... -1 on Mario.
Well, that's a -1 for me. I give Mario. That was great. Mario was setting me up. It was awesome. So I didn't get it. What the tool is that they're going to strive to do with this thing. But I will say a shout out to Atlassian. They did not start off as a whiteboard company. They started off as an all remote software development company. I can't remember what product they were trying to build. And they kept running into problems that they couldn't get their remote employees to be able to work collaboratively together. So they invented the whole whiteboard. Jira. No.
Confluence?
Confluence. So they invented, so they created Confluence was their first product that they came out with so their team could work well together. And then they did Jira so that their engineering team could work well together and everything like that. So this is a company that is born to pivot. They pivoted very well, and they've done some acquisitions and stuff. And I'm a huge fan. I don't understand this acquisition that they're doing and how it's going to fit into what it is that they're doing. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be successful, because they've been successful doing major pivots in the past as well. And they are now becoming this aggregator that's buying a lot of pieces of applications and plugging them all together and trying to make them do stuff. So I don't have a good answer to what this means from an AI, because I don't know what the tool is supposed to do. Like, I just didn't get it. But I'm curious to see where it's going to go.
I got the same feeling, Rob. So don't feel alone. I was like I don't get this at all. But to your point, they've always kind of led the charge. So I'm curious to see where it ends up.
It smells of me like IBM's is going to buy somebody around the corner and bury their technology. Like these, big behemoth people, and Atlassian's not an IBM, but they just start buying stuff up to try to be in the space. And I don't know that it's productive or not productive. I just see it as we have to go through that arc. And I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, well, it started and now we have to wait. We have to wait for them to all decide who they think, has decent technology, let people fall out, and then we'll be down to enough that we can actually make a selection, as opposed to the bazillion that we have to choose from today, where you can't even
And
do
for
the
all we know,
analysis.
they're doing this acquisition to get their hands on the resources, like that other company that bought a CRM system just because they couldn't find engineers and they wanted that kind of engineer skill set, right? So
Yeah, acquire,
You look,
hire.
you look at so much of the M&A that's going on, especially in the smaller market. The guys who are getting picked up for $1.5 million, because, like anything else, it's not about your idea. It's about whether or not you run out of money. And so, as some of these great ideas, and maybe there is something that they see in it that will be awesome for DevOps, because that's kind of their whole world is DevOps. And how do we make that a great ecosystem and environment? And they've done a really great job. But at the same time, I mean, there have been some very incongruous, and we have some gobblers in the industry, and they're not even for the small guys, and what they're buying, I'm like, okay, weird. I have no idea what the heck y'all are going to do with that or why. But yeah, sounds great. Because everybody needs another point of sale, another CRM. If we could just, if we had another MailChimp, Constant Contact, something, I mean, life would be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pivot over to what we did with AI this week. Anybody wants to kick us off?
I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first just because mine is very relevant to this. So I let this take me down a rabbit hole. And I started applying the combination of the Taco Bell thing and the flattery and the peer pressure. And I started going back and forth with ChatGPT on use cases and personas that could negatively inject problems into, a chatbot of any sort in mortgage industry. It's really frightening. It really is frightening, because when you start to take a very technical view of what's possible and the different um, injection methods, right? How you can basically do stuff into a chatbot, it's really frightening. Like it really is something that you sit there and say, it's going to take a lot more work to really be able to have customer facing stuff in the mortgage industry that you can trust, and not just loan officer stuff. So it was pretty cool, and it was enlightening, right? Because
Are you saying you can do software injection through a voice command
so
to
let me give you guys some
bot,
examples.
to a
So
AI bot?
there's a couple different ways that people have found that AI can introduce stuff. So one, AI is now producing its own content, and it's using hidden characters inside what you see as printed text, so that when you copy it, it has basically a watermark inside itself. You don't see it, but there's a mark inside that it's basically identified itself to say, I was drafted by AI. Similarly, there's ways to basically push, if your chatbot accepts a document, there's ways to inject stuff inside a document that becomes instructions and commands and backdoors. And so there's a whole bunch of methods like that where you can really do insidious things with I'll just say a generic chatbot. And it really is like, it's, as much as it's been portrayed as a really cool tool, it really is something that from an enterprise view, you got to be really careful.
So all the net ops and security guys out there for the finances are going, Uh-oh. Another penetration point.
It's that, yeah. So I several years ago invested in a company called Cyemptive, one of the most amazing cybersecurity protection platforms out there. It's just it mind blowing. But what I learned was, to Mario's point, and I can't remember the right words for it, but you can hide nefarious code in images that you're texting to your friends and stuff. And when your computer opens the image, it's just reading zeros and ones and zeros and ones, and there's executable stuff in there. That stuff has been around for years. So Kyle, to your point, the AI is just another entry point for these things to get in and have bad effects on what your systems
We're going to have
are
to
and
do
stuff
a
like
show
that.
on this one. Let's find some articles on security to get everyone scared.
Well,
I'm
what I
scared
did with
now.
AI, yeah, what I did with AI this week was, gosh, about a year ago, I spoke at an MBA conference on AI, and I talked about the future role of what's known as a conductor. Well, what was going to be known as a conductor. This is before this was even out there. And what a conductor is, it's the human being that is orchestrating multiple AI agents that are running and doing stuff and making sure they're doing the job right, and they're looking at the solutions to come back and make sure the architecture is in place and stuff. So theoretically, I described this position and could talk about it and understand what it was. Well, this week I actually became a conductor. So I'm, as I say on almost every show, I'm not a developer, but I'm doing some vibe coding. Yep, and I'm using Cursor as the platform that I work in. And Cursor introduced this background agent capability, and when you run it, it spins up a VM, a virtual environment. It brings in all your code, and then it executes it and the changes you want to make, and then it checks it into GitHub, and then you get a PR request, and which is when you're working with a bunch of engineers, human beings, and they do this, somebody then reviews the code and accepts it into the main line. So here I've been this solo guy doing vibe coding. I had 3 background agents running at the same time doing 3 totally unrelated stuff, and my GitHub started filling up with these requests to review. So for the first time in my 2.5 months of vibe coding, I had to call my senior software engineer son and say, can you teach me GitHub? Because now I gotta I don't know what to do. I got all these branches. I don't know what to do with it. But I realized that I had gone from being an individual contributor working with an AI tool to being a conductor, orchestrating 3 different agents, working on 3 different parts of the application, doing 3 different things, and then merging all that code back together. And it was a completely different skill set. Like, I will say that it hurt my brain to do this context switching and understand the complexity that was there, but it was also exhilarating and amazing. Holy crap, I got more efficient because I had 3 times more work happening in the same period of time. Then I got inefficient when I had to learn how to use GitHub better and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience to go from vibe coding to being a conductor.
Cool. You've given me inspiration. I got to
Good.
start mashing the keyboard again. Ben
Ruth,
or Ruth, do you guys have anything else that you?
Then you go.
Why don't I go? Because
Ah.
mine's always lame. I'm always the user, like trying to. I got directions to a restaurant. Okay, it's like that's. I'm so lame.
Mine's pretty lame too. I mean, in my new role, I've got to deal with a lot of documentation, and I just made it do some very basic TA work in the sense that I didn't know the versioning. Like, I had no way, and I wasn't going to read 37 documents, so I fed them all into AI and just said, based on the, go through these documents based on can you order these into what you believe is the appropriate versioning history? And so it did it, and I sampled it, and I went like, oh, okay, and it eliminated easily a whole day's worth of work. So I think that's kind of lame, but I will tell you that I have saved hundreds, if not thousands of hours with this kind of work in AI. And it is such an important tool to me on an everyday basis that I now can't live without it. But I will say the one fun thing I did was there's this great song called Black Cow by Steely Dan. And I didn't know what the ingredients for the black cow was. And so I asked AI, and I'll leave it at that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Something
So,
for us to research. Go ahead,
so
Ruth.
mine's super boring, but it is for me exciting, right? So I've been, there's, do you guys find that sometimes, the media, the news that you get, you can read it and you can almost hear, like, here's one that I can read that they're under 30, right? Because I can hear their life experience in the article. No one's ever buying a house ever. Well, when you're 25, that's what it feels like. I mean, that's what it
Bruh.
felt like for everyone. And so, what I tend to do with it is I'll get something and I'll see it in a few places, and then I spend time doing research. And I love doing deep research on both Anthropic as well as OpenAI and seeing what the differences are, because they both approach it very, very differently. But I was looking at some local real estate data because, you read what comes out from all of the big companies about what's happening in your market. Well, I can very easily have it look at realtor.com, Zillow, an MLS feed, et cetera. And I want for it to just I start asking questions to see if it corroborates that data. And what's interesting about it is data is data, right? I can make it say whatever I want it to say. And that was what I spent quite a lot of time this week, which was really thinking about how I could make it, how I could influence it, and running a lot of that data through Python so that it could provide me back some of the stuff that I wanted across several data sets. And that for me was very empowering, because for a long time that would have taken weeks and months that I just didn't have the time to do. So I would always just be like, I guess I'll just accept that whatever they say is the truth. And now I don't have to. And that feels super empowering.
That's cool. Did you have an AI tool help you write the Python script? It is pretty phenomenal.
I know.
Exactly.
Because I would have no idea how to do, literally zero idea how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And mine is still pretty lame. But it's something I've got to do, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart right now, which is finding my next opportunity. And I am finding that the tool is helping tremendously with taking the aspects of somewhere where I'd like to possibly work or be able to help out, and looking through my resume and making sure that these things all fit. Now, I obviously have to read it, and I will make a very funny comment that my wife, who's been absolutely wonderful, I call it a homemaker, but she's done a job. She's been our construction manager. She's been a rental manager. She's everything for us and for our family. So she does a ton of work. And she went to her resume on there, and I fed it some basic information about her doing. She volunteered, I think, at the school for serving lunches, and it came back that she was a para-educator, and that it was. I was like, whoa, that was a hallucination. Like, how did it come back with all this? So anyone who is using AI to look at your resume, please do yourself a favor and make sure it's not lying on there. You have to make sure that everything it's saying it's doing is just put in a more eloquent way. And then always print it to PDF so that those little markers aren't there. So
can I give you a stat I saw today? If by chance you get lucky enough that you use the same AI to write your resume that someplace you submit it to uses to review your resume, you have a 20 to 30% higher chance of being put in a short list. AI likes itself.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Wait, that's bias. There's bias in AI. I found it.
Because it's looking to the same thing for the prediction. It's looking to see what would match and predict. A few years ago, my husband's an info security. He's a CISSP or a CISP, whatever and I mean, it would just invent all kinds of stuff. And he's like, I didn't do that. He's like, I didn't go to the moon. I've never worked for NASA, nothing. And it would just invent all kinds of stuff.
It just means.
I think we're Mario. Do you have to leave us right now, or you have to?
I do. I'm tired of talking.
Oh boy,
and that's rare.
Well, this has been wonderful, Ben. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
And Ruth, welcome back. And Rob and Mario, it's always great to see you guys. And with that, unless Ben, you got some closing comment?
No, just other than that, I mean, food delivery engineer, that's a thing, for your wife. So make sure you put it on the resume.
That it is a thing. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Ben, I'm Kyle Myers.
I'm Rob Katz.
I'm Ruth Lee.
I am Ben Sizemore.
And I'm still Mario De Benedetto.
And this has been the AI Riff.
Wires hum like whispers in the deep dark night. Shadows dancing strange under neon light. Digits spinning fast like a gambler's hand. The clock chimes change, it's the new command. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Binary prophets ride in fading streams. Data flows like rivers fueling all our dreams. Simple or savvy, it's all the same path. Under skies of innovation, we redraw the map. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Set the rhythm to the beat of change we sing. Every click and hum a key that rings. A revolution, quiet, but it's vast. Building empires where echoes of futures cast. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean.